or reason nañ bugga suñ réew ci suñ xol buñ bugga suñuy parti wala bugga keneen nañ suñu réew nañu jaral suñ bakkan suñu réew nañu jaral lu ne képp kuy Gambien tey yaa ngi xam ne boo ko waxee boo ko sa xol a ngi métti ci biir waa képp koo xam ne nag nga ne yow da nga soppoon Yaya Jammeh da nga ko bugga te gis lu dul dëgga na nga wax parce que boo waxut naa fekk nga bu fekkee ne nga ne yow Gambien nga bugga da nga doon soppoon Yaya Jammeh tey nga gis ko muy def lu dul dëgga ba tey nga noppi naa fekk nga naa fekk nag yàlla mu ne du dugg aljanna mukk naa fekk du dugg aljanna Yaya Jammeh Gambien si ñoo la buggoon Gambien si ñoo la sànniloon dem nañ tey ba Gambien si tànn nañ keneen na nga ànd ak ngor na nga ànd ak muñ na nga ànd ak dal te xam ne lii la yàlla dogal lii la Gambien si dogal nga nangu dogali yàlla te nga joxe réew mi ci jàmm li laa war a suuli asalaamaaleykum wa rahmatullah jërëjëf.
Disgraced conman and cult leader, Ambassador Dr. Kenneth D. Jackson, the SCEI One Blood cult leader, who now lives in relative obscurity in light of several ongoing investigations, ranging from child molestation to potential ties with terrorism, has once again publicly admitted his relationship with the puppet dictator and warlord Yahya Jammeh, President of the Gambia. In a report released by the state propaganda newspaper Daily Observer, Mr. Kenneth D. Jackson has once again revealed to the public his unwavering support for the brutal military leader Yahya Jammeh, who took the government by force during a military coup and has since been connected and allegedly responsible for corruption and state-endorsed genocide within the Gambia. Jackson once again repeated his previous statements about the safety of the Gambia and its potential as an economic power base in the region and the world. Jackson, who has claimed diplomatic status as an ambassador in 2 different countries, also claims to be God's divine leader on earth. He has also made public claims to be the single appointed global ambassador of the one true Church of God, a position which he claims to have inherited from the former Worldwide Church of God leader, Herbert W. Armstrong, who also claimed to be God's ambassador on earth and the modern-day Elijah, a position similar to Mr. Jackson's own self-claimed incarnation as a modern-day Joseph. Jackson, an American native born to several generations of U.S. citizens or slaves, claims to be a descendant of a king of West Africa and the rightful sole heir of a huge swath of West Africa encompassing the Gambia, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, 2 other countries in which Jackson tried unsuccessfully to rise to power, allegedly resulting in his general exile from those 2 places. After 2 failed attempts to set up a power base using agriculture, it seems he may now be shifting his strategy towards the manipulation of economics. In the report released last week, Jackson made reference to his first diplomatic mission, which in fact he has previously admitted had not actually been formally endorsed by the State Departments of either the Gambia, Canada, or the United States. That trip further resulted in a somewhat public humiliation when the U.S. government refused to acknowledge him at all, causing him to cancel a supposed U.S. leg of the trip, during which he was supposed to meet with top leaders in Washington, D.C. He claimed that the U.S. government had refused to properly acknowledge and formally invite him, which insulted his position of authority and meant that they would have to come begging later. This writer spent over 14 days covering the Canada trip as part of Jackson's personal entourage and was witness to a variety of dishonest claims, attempts to commit frauds, as well as a fully pre-planned murder plot to eliminate a former member of Jackson's organization. While in Canada, Jackson used multiple false claims and credentials to attempt to defraud private industry leaders to investing in massive infrastructure programs in the Gambia, including a giant floating deepwater seaport. Among those targeted by Jackson were shipping magnate Blair McKeel and equipment scrap trader Bill Van Ravensway. The murder plot was to occur at Ravensway's scrapyard on Highway 56 in Canfield, Ontario. Ravensway, Jackson's primary host and strategic partner in his own words, was during a portion of that trip incarcerated on gun charges, stemming charges levied against him as the result of Project Heist, a 5-month OPP investigation focusing on WG equipment owned by Van Ravensway. This investigation charged that Van Ravensway and his son Trevor ran a high-demand company that shipped stolen vehicles and parts out of Canada. Van Ravensway faces a total of 38 charges over the exports, altered vehicle identification numbers, forgery, and possession of a prohibited weapon. Jackson, who has also been conclusively linked to several frauds including false credentials, investment scams, and even frauds as wild as involvement with a false branch of the Knights of Malta, which was responsible for numerous frauds and subject to several criminal investigations. And among the known deceptions of Ambassador Apostle Dr. Kenneth D. Jackson are a fantastical false CV, which claims him to be a king, diplomat, ambassador, apostle, Indian chieftain, special attorney, holistic doctor, dentist, university president, and much more. The education listed on his CV include 2 defunct diploma mills in the University of Maryland of College Park, which has adamantly denied that he ever attended, including issuing a formal letter of denial. The question on everyone's mind now is, what is the real relationship between President Jammeh and Kenneth D. Jackson Sr.? Why is he claiming to be ambassador at large? Why is the state propaganda rag endorsing it? And lastly, how many more victims will be left in the wake of this man? Even as his religious cult following and making Georgia reels from the blows of the criminal trial of Jackson's number 3 administrator for aggravated child molestation, which extends to his own son, Smoke Jackson, and while multiple families struggle to piece together lives broken and young girls forever scarred by the sadistic abuses of Ambassador Dr. Kenneth D. Jackson Sr. and his organization, he is still at his old games, playing God with politics and further complicating geopolitical factors already at play in West Africa and the world.
The Secretary General reiterates his call for a peaceful, timely, and orderly transfer of power in full respect of the will of the Gambian people as expressed in the presidential election.
Today, Gambia on edge. Will this autocratic leader accept democratic defeat from this new one? I'm Femi Oke, and you're in the stream.
I will never rule this country without your mandate since we started elections. And I will never cheat or dispute the elections, because this is the most transparent, rig-proof elections in the whole world.
Gambia was poised for its first democratic transition in decades when President Yahya Jammeh conceded the national elections he lost earlier this month. Gambians who opposed his rule took to the streets in celebration.
We are happy and we know that we are going to rule the Gambia what they expected from us. We have democracy, new developments, everybody will be free movement, free, anything free, everything free. And we expect so many international people to come, or the Gambian who are in exile, so that they can come and develop in their own country.
But just 1 week later, Jammeh changed his mind.
I hereby announce to you Gambians my total rejection of the electoral results and thereby annulling the elections in its entirety. We will go back to the polls because I want to make sure that every Gambian has voted.
Jammeh has contested the vote in court and sent soldiers to raid Gambia's electoral commission. The winning candidate, Adama Barrow, has urged him to stand down.
The outgoing president has no constitutional authority to reject the result of the election and order for fresh election to be held. I urge him to change his current position and accept the verdict of the people in good faith for the sake of the Gambia, our homeland.
Even before losing to Barrow, Jammeh cracked down on his supporters. Dozens of activists were arrested after mass protests erupted in April, and at least 2 of them died in custody. Human rights groups have accused Jammeh of using repression to maintain the power he seized in a coup 22 years ago. Here to discuss the current crisis in Gambia, Dennis Ferretia. He's an Africa analyst and commentator. Fatou Camara is a journalist and former press secretary to Gambian President Jammeh. Sharif Bojang Jr. is a journalist with West Africa Democracy Radio, and Samsudin Sarr is Gambia's Deputy Ambassador to the United Nations. Welcome, everybody. Let me show you something here online. This is Suffragette. I'm confused. Hasn't he already conceded? He just wants a way out. Truth is, Gambians have had enough, and he needs to step down. That confusion, Samsudin. Are you also confused, or can you enlighten us as to why a president would concede and then change his mind?
That's the number one question I was expecting, and in fact, I think that's going to be the focal issue here, and that is what is missing in the narrative of why he changed his mind, because something happened on the 2nd of December when the election results were read. We all know that it was on TV with the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Njai, reading the numbers showing that Barrow, the winner, has won the election with over 263,000 votes, while Jammeh had 212,000 votes plus, and Mama candidate, third candidate, had about 102,000 votes.
So you're basically saying, Samsudin, that the president conceded on the election commission, saying, "Okay, you have lost. Here are the numbers," and then they made a mistake.
He conceded. It was all accepted 3 days after.
Yeah,
he did not come to the TV as such. He shadily, in a sneaky way, called back representatives of the parties at his office and gave them letters saying that there were mistakes in the counting, and instead of the difference, which was 51,000 votes that Barrow had won him with, it had reduced to something like 18,000. Numbers changed. from 263,000 for Barrow to about 227,000. And the margin narrowed to about 18,000. Come on. Let
me just bring that to everybody else's attention. Okay, so Sharif, the margin